show that to the camera.
Okay.
And then you can do the thing. Go ahead.
That?
Isn't that fun?
That is fun. I was the mayor of Proctor. I was a city councilor and mayor up in Proctor before moving to Brainerd. So I've had my political blood flowing for many years and been involved in all kinds of campaigns, both up north and down here and statewide. But so it's interesting when Sally and I and our kids moved down in, to me it's interesting, in 1987, because I was, like I said, I was a mayor, I was teaching, I was coaching, I was, in the union and leadership there. So Sal asked me to, when we moved to here, not to do those things anymore, to spend more time with her and our family and stuff. And that lasted about 2 weeks. And, I just have to be engaged and involved. So, but I never expected to run for state office, maybe something locally or whatever. But here's what happened. In 2004, prior to that even, 2004, the Republican majority was in the House and the governor's seat, and we still had the Senate, but they were dismantling Health and Human Services, they were dismantling public education, they were dismantling lots of programs that I and so many others not only depend on, but need. I mean, and feel passionate about. So I was going to be retiring soon in February of 2007. I was going to retire, and some people approached me in early 2006 and asked me to consider running against Paul Gazelka. Paul Gazelka was the first term rookie legislator, House member at that time. And I thought long and hard about it. I prayed about it. I talked to Sal about it. I had a lot of feelers out there. And I really did say no a number of times first. And then the House that year wanted the majority back, of course. And so they put out feelers to local communities of people that had good name recognition and maybe had been involved in politics or been involved in the political process. And so my name was presented, and there was a state legislator by the name of Frank Moe, great guy from Bemidji. He was a college prof at BSU, sled dog racer, but just an all-around wonderful person. Frank visited me at our house here in Brainerd at least 4 times that I can remember, asking. And my response was no, and then boom, yeah, we need to do this. So then the reason that I truly did run is because they wanted to close the state hospital here in Brainerd. They wanted to knock the building down. They were destroying or dismantling public education, all of which I was passionate about. Mental health services were being critically cut. So there were lots of cuts going on within the programs that I felt passionate about. So I finally said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I think I can do better. If I didn't think I could do better, then I would not have run. But the other thing that, and I appreciate Mr. Gazelka at this point, because he did not meet with all of his constituency on his first year. I heard over and over again how this area was not being represented, was not being listened to. And we needed somebody that would listen to us and represent us and perhaps even take action and get some things done in trying to help save some of the drastic cuts and programs that were being made by the governor at that time and the House majority. So I signed on board in 2006. I took a leave of absence from the Brainerd School District in the May of 2006 and did not go back to teaching in the fall of 2007. But I instead campaigned. We campaigned hard. We had a great committee going. We had tons of volunteers going. So people have called me to get advice on running for office, state office. And I have told them there's a number of characteristics, but the 2 most important are likability and name recognition. Likability, I've been blessed and fortunate that for some reason, Dan, I can't quite figure it out yet, people like me. And that also plays a factor into my teaching and coaching career. I was a teacher and a coach here in Brainerd and up in Proctor for 34 years. And I know many of my students, because they told me that, would go home during that 2006 election, former students that I had in my classes or athletes that I coached, and said, Mom and Dad, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Green, Republican, Independent, you vote the way you want, except you got to vote for Mr. Ward. And so that really did help both of our likability and name recognition. And another important factor is, are you able to raise some funds? And are you able to make the ask? Do you feel comfortable with making the ask to ask people to donate, ask people to volunteer, ask people to phone call, ask people to door knock? All of those factors are very, very important. And how many people do you think you can bring along with our party army and your individual army for volunteering? And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to have a very large crowd of folks that were willing to work with us, for us, because it wasn't just about me. It was about what we wanted to do and what we intended to do and what we were going to hope to do. So that's kind of the beginning of how it happened with the state run. So I started serving in January of 2007.
What was that like?
Well, that's a great question. I was really fortunate to, in my opinion, have it's a great opportunity. And I don't mean to sound Pollyannish, but I'm going to for a minute, because here's what was number one opportunity for me, for Representative Ward, now serving, the District 12A at that time. And I'm going to give you a story about that, if it's okay. I had a great staff working with me. Together, we were very, very fortunate to work together, and my staff got to know me and got to know what my expectations were, and they were remarkable. And that really helps when you do get elected, that you get a staff people that are familiar with you, maybe not at the beginning, but become familiar with you, and then have a likeness of what you feel and your interests and things as such. So, we get hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of emails and calls and texts and visits throughout not only the year, but throughout your legislative career. I remember this one in particular that I've shared over and over again. There was a lady in rural Brainerd that lived out in rural Brainerd that had lung cancer and was in end stages of lung cancer. She was very young. She had 2 young children. When she got lung cancer, her husband quit his job to take care of her. Their house out in rural Brainerd, east of town, was heated by propane fuel. Because her husband quit his job and she was sick, she could not work. They had 2 little kids, and they ran out of propane in the middle of winter. And the propane company would not come and fill because they didn't pay their last propane bill either. So my staff got that call and said, Representative Ward, we think you need to take this call. A lot of times they'll take a message and then we'll work together. But my staff was smart enough to say, Representative Ward, we want you to directly hear this. So I called the husband. I called the number and the husband answered, and he shared with me that same story, that the propane company would not come unless they prepaid their past bill. They paid a penalty fee, and there was another fee that they were going to have to pay in order for them to have heat and anything else that propane ran in their house. I was in tears. This lady was in end stage of life. 2 little kids. It was winter. I told the husband, I can't promise you anything, but I am going to see what I can do. Hung up the phone. I took my lobbyist manual. I looked up the lobbyist for the propane, natural gas, propane. I thank the Lord that I knew him and had a good relationship with him. And I called him angry, and I told him the story. And I said, I know I know that the propane companies are not regulated like other energy companies, but I promise you this. If you do not help me take care of this, I will introduce legislation. Now, remember, we had taken the majority back. in 2007 in the House. So I could make all kinds of correct, accurate statements saying, I'm going to introduce legislation that is going to regulate your energy system like other energy systems. Representative Ward, settle down, Representative, give me a chance. And so I said, I'll tell you what, so-and-so, I'm going to give you 2 hours, and if I don't hear from you, I'm going to the reviser, I'm going to my research, and I'm going to draft a bill regulating propane. And within the 2 hours, he called me back. He said, I called the company. They will be there this afternoon. They will forget their previous fill. They will forget fees. They will forgive this fill and fill them for free. And does that satisfy you? I said, thank you very much. It does satisfy me. And I'm going to closely monitor this, whatever. 2 weeks later, I called the husband, and his wife had just passed. But comfortably, warm, lovingly, and I was proud to be able to help that family make a difference. And we as legislators get a lot of those kind of calls and asks, and we're blessed with an opportunity to try to make a difference. It doesn't always happen. But when it does happen, and this was 2007 or 8, one of those, I think it was 7. So it was 16 years ago, and it still, touches my heart. So the number one, as I was saying, the number one opportunity that I have was was trying to help my constituents. And I really mean that. And that's the thing I miss the most. I don't miss the partisanship. I don't miss all the other things that are negative and that are downers rather than uppers. But that's necessary also. I mean, you also get an opportunity to maybe look at legislation and craft legislation that, are going to help schools, human health services, a number of factors, Dan. And I sat on all the education committees when I was down there. I was the vice chair of the Education and Finance Committee. Throughout my career, I kind of climbed the ladder. I kind of climbed the ladder to an assistant majority leader, which means you are part of the leadership team, which gets together to make the agenda, to create the agenda within the House. And I really felt honored to be able to get to that point in my career. I enjoyed working with all legislators, but in particular those that were willing to, no matter what side of the aisle they were on, especially the ones that were willing to compromise, to work together, to get things done for their constituency and for the citizens of the state of Minnesota. One of the things I tried very hard to do was to stop the destruction of the state hospital buildings here in Brainerd. They're beautiful buildings. I worked out there. When I first came to Brainerd, I worked out there at the state hospital. And there were great staff, great programs, great patients, residents, but we just couldn't get it stopped. And here it sits vacant land right now or whatever. So you're not successful on everything. And you can't take that personal. You've just got to move on to the next issue and try your best to do the best job that you can.
They say that in Washington, if you want a friend, get a dog. What was it like in St. Paul?
Yeah.
You just talked about that. I know Carrie Rood was on the other side of the aisle, but you two worked together a lot.
Oh, my goodness. And it's funny you should just mention that because I was just thinking about her coming over here. Carrie and I and Joe Radinovich, the three of us, that was our team. Senator Rood was our senator. Representative Radinovich and myself were the two reps, and we had a great team. We had so many pieces of legislation that we authored and we championed and we worked together on to help our area, to help our constituency. And it is so sad because that's how it should work. That's how it should work, but it doesn't. Seems like it has broken down even more at the fed level, at the state level. And even now it's getting into some local levels as well. But St. Paul in itself, at that point, was better than, in my opinion, the federal level. They were, because you were a Democrat, that didn't mean you were didn't have good ideas. Because you were Republican, that didn't mean you didn't have good ideas. Now all of us had our own principles and values, which we tried to live by, because the bottom line is you have to wake up every morning and look in that mirror and remember who you are and be proud of who you are and proud of what you did. And so I'm a proud Democrat. I consider myself a moderate Democrat and proud of that. And I believe strongly in unions. I believe strongly in healthcare and public education. I believe in, most all of the Democratic agenda, although I'm pro-life. And what does that mean? We had a congressman Jim Obastar, who was our congressman in the 8th District for years and years and years. And Congressman Obastar was also a pro-life. And here's what Congressman Obastar defined as being pro-life. He said, pro-life means having a consistent ethic of life. Having a consistent ethic of life from conception until death. So when that child is born, we help that child and those parents. When that child goes to school, we help with that child's education. When that child becomes an adult, if they can't find a job, we help them find a job. When they become a senior citizen and they need nursing care or whatever kind of care that they need, or health care, we help them find that. We have a consistent ethic of life from conception till death. And Congressman Obastar, in my opinion, that's how I try to live as well. That's how I live as well. I will never, forget, what Congressman Obastar taught me about what being pro-life is all about. And, the abortion issue is an issue that has split our country, in my opinion. And right now it's a hot topic. I mean, it still is a hot topic. And so I really believe if everyone would see life as a consistent ethic of life, I think that would help all of us with how we feel about life. And I still respect and appreciate a woman's right to choose as well. I really do. And especially if the health of the mother is involved, if there was a rape involved, if there was incest involved, hands down, there's everything, in my opinion, should be on the table as well to make those kind of decisions. Tough decisions, very, very difficult decisions. But, you can't, in my opinion, I'd never tried to look from tunnel vision, but try to look at the whole broad aspect of each issue. So the whole opportunity to be in St. Paul was an incredible opportunity. Was it hard? It was the hardest job I ever had. And I love teaching and coaching. I was blessed with a great teaching and coaching career. I was a Walmart State Teacher of the Year. I won some championship, state high school championship championships with some of the teams I was the head coach of. I had a great education, teaching and coaching career. So that way I've been really fortunate. So all of us work very hard in all of our jobs. But this job wasn't an 8-hour-a-day job. It honestly was 24/7, 365. And especially in the House, as soon as if you won or you lost and you wanted to run again, you had to start raising money right away again. You had to start politically being engaged politically or in the community or whatever. For me, that was easy because I love being engaged in the community and going to everything that is in the community. So, but the point is, you're on a 2-year term, so you never get a chance in the House to breathe. You never get a chance to that was tough. Because campaigning is very tough. Legislating is very tough. Being away from your family for 5 to 6 months, at least 4 days a week is very tough. And in the last month of the session, you get so worn down. Honestly, you cannot remember, and I mean this sincerely, if you ate a meal, if you went to the bathroom, how much you slept, you're on autopilot. I remember running into, at that time, it wasn't Senator Rube, but at that time, the person who was a state senator here, and we were both so worn out, we met on the Capitol steps, didn't talk to each other, just looked at each other, and went toward each other, and gave each other a hug and started crying. It's an emotional, difficult time, because you're going through sessions, 24-hour sessions, 36-hour sessions, and you just are worn down. Even if you're not in leadership, it's very, very difficult. So, but it was the best opportunity that I ever had in my life, quite frankly, and I'm thankful for that.
What's it like to not win?
Oh, I still have nightmares about that. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough on you. It's tough on your family. It's tough on your friends. It's tough on your constituency, unless they voted for the other person. It is very, very difficult because you pour your heart and soul and blood and sweat and tears into the whole process. And not just you, your family. During my last run, my daughter house was vandalized, and her property was some of her property was destroyed, and it was pointed towards me. My wife and I, during that last campaign, were sent 60-some anonymous letters. 60-some anonymous letters that were hateful letters. They were made out like ransom notes. They cut out the letters and pasted them on paper. They would take a lit piece of mine and one of them turned me into a woman, and then did their ransom kind of stuff. And one of them stated in that letter this one went to anonymous letter. This one went to my wife. This piece of literature that they made me into a woman, which we'll talk about the marriage equality vote in a minute, but it was always about the marriage equality vote. And that piece of literature that my wife got anonymously said, and I'm almost quoting for a fact, verbatim, Sally, the only reason you married that deformed, gay-loving man was because you yourself are deformed with your breast cancer mastectomy. That's how personal, how cruel, how hard it has become to be an elected official. We saved all those letters and turned them into the police department, to their credit, found out who was doing it, turned it into the county county attorney, who told that police department, you go to these people's house and tell them that if the wards get another letter like this, we are going to press charges. And then he named a bunch of charges. After that, never got another letter after that. So it gets real personal. So how is it to lose? It stinks. I don't like the word sucks, but it sucks. And it's difficult. And you know what? That was in 2014 when I lost. And it still hurts. It still hurts. I would still enjoy and appreciate and like to be trying to help do good things for this area and our state. But so be it. I believe everything happens for a reason. I've had some major health issues recently, and maybe, maybe that's happening because maybe I'm thinking a little bit more about running, and God is saying, no, you got this health stuff to take care of you. But It does. It does hurt big time. On the other side, the first time that we won, and we were very, very fortunate to win 4 different times because we had so much support and so many volunteers that helped us win. It wasn't me. It was all of us together to help us win. But that first one was sweet. That first one when we beat Mr. Gazelka was really sweet. I don't think anybody expected it, including him. As you win or lose an election, protocol, you're supposed to make a congratulatory or call, or a call to your opponent. And I remember waiting for the call. We were watching the results, and we knew earlier that there was no way he could make up the votes he was behind. It was just there weren't enough. So even if I only got one of those leftover votes, we knew that I had won. And we waited and waited and waited. And then finally, early morning, we got the call. And it was nice to get the call, but it was a call that basically said, "I can't believe you beat me." So you got to be gracious too. It hurts when you lose, but you got to be gracious when you're winning as well. And in my opinion. But that was a sweet victory, that first one, for sure. I made calls to all the other folks that ran against me, including Mr. Gazelka and I actually met a couple different times after I beat him to talk about some potential legislation that he wanted me to carry, and I did, and I was successful, and he was appreciative. I also ran against Kevin Gedker, had a very respectful campaign. Chris Kellett, very respectful campaign. David Allen Punt, very respectful, and they were gracious. I was gracious, and it was good, but I just couldn't on the last one. Shame on me.
So talk about the gay marriage amendment.
Okay. So in 2013, we had the governorship, we had the House majority, we had the Senate majority, and I'm talking the Democrats. The Democrats had all of those. We had the trifecta, and I was on the leadership team, and my seatmate was a young buck by the name of Joe Radinovich, who actually interned for me my first year at the House. Joe came in and interned with me at the House. Amazing young man. He was an amazing young man. And Joe learned a lot. I learned a lot from Joe, and Joe learned a lot from me, and I have the utmost respect, admiration, and appreciation for him. So we had the Senate majority, the House majority, and the governor's seatship. And I was on the leadership committee. So the leadership committee met at least once a week to work on the agenda. And when you get the trifecta, you get to the point where you can run the agenda, you really do want to, because you've been stymied for years, or maybe only 2 years, but usually more than that. So you want to get done what you can get done. And politics, federal, state, pretty much just those 2 levels, there's 2 things that are so important at those 2 levels. Who's got the majority, and who holds the gavels in the committee. So who has a majority simply means that you've got the votes to mostly pass what you want, pretty much. You sometimes need the help from the other side, but not always. Who holds the gavels is critical, because that's going to become the agenda for that session, for that 2-year session. So myself and other rural legislators, greater Minnesota legislators, who were on the leadership committee, right away we put together an agenda that was very, very, very aggressive. Very aggressive. And we wanted to do it all. Public education, health and human services, marriage equality, public safety, the big ones. We wanted to do big, right? So we did most of the big ones earlier in the session. We got to later in the session, and we had not passed marriage equality yet, but had talked about it a number of times. Now, my freshman seatmate, his first term, Joe Radinovich, absolutely came out right away and said, I'm voting for marriage equality, because we knew it was on the agenda. We knew it was on the agenda. And Joe declared right away, I'm voting for marriage equality, period. And I'm pretty sure that even during the campaign, he said that. I, on the other hand, did not say that. The year before, when the Republicans were in the majority, they put a constitutional amendment ballot on the ballot to define marriage. Okay, so that would have been 12 and 13. During that debate, at that time, before the marriage equality vote, I stood up on the House floor and talked about why I would not support that. And what I said was this, because this plays into my later vote. What I said was this. I grew up in Proctor, Minnesota. And Proctor, Minnesota is a railroad town. And my dad started as a laborer on the railroad and eventually climbed the ladder and became management on the railroad. When your dad was in management for sure, and maybe even worked on the railroad, and you had just graduated from Proctor High School, he had the opportunity to get me a job in the summer, and the railroad paid big bucks, good money, that would cover your whole college tuition for the next year. So you worked that 3 to 4 months, and you made enough money to pay for your college tuition for that full year, okay? My dad got me 4 different positions: clerical, track gang, custodial, and I don't remember what the 4th one was right now, but it was the 4 positions that I felt I could handle no matter what. When at that time, and that was in 1968, before the Equal Opportunity Act was in place. At that time, you also, in order to have a job on the railroad, you had to see the company doctor. The company doctor had to approve you through a physical to have any job. Doesn't matter if it was janitorial, clerical, track gang, yard. The other one was in the yard gang. Didn't matter. He had to approve you for that job. 4 different times I went to see that doctor. 4 different times I was turned down and told, I can't pass you because of your arm, because you got a handicap, and I'm not going to okay you. And I pleaded my case. I said, doctor, have you watched me in high school? I played sports. I was a good athlete. Have you watched me? Have you listened to my father, my mother? Do you know anybody that knows John Ward, and John Ward can do anything that he wants to? This will never stop me. I can push a broom. I can lift a tie. I can pound a spike into a whatever. What you're telling me is ridiculous in my opinion. I can do all of it. And he said, I'm sorry, but we can't. I gave that house and I said, I faced discrimination 4 different times on 4 different jobs in 1968. And at that time, I remember, because my folks told me and taught me early in my life, believe in yourself, work hard, never give up, and you'll accomplish anything you want. Believe in yourself, work hard, never give up, and you'll accomplish anything you want. Well, here I am for the first time in my life told, nope, not true. We're not going to give you a job because you got a bum arm and missing some fingers. And so I remember at that time saying to myself, I will always fight discrimination whenever I can. Always. I don't care what kind of discrimination it is. I am going to do that the rest of my life. So now comes the marriage vote. And I'll tell you what, my head was arguing with my heart that whole session. I'm a Catholic, and I talked to my priest numerous times about this issue, about the marriage equality issue. He was, I still visit with him. He's a very good friend, but he gave me great pastoral feedback as well. He never did tell me yes or no. He never said, this is how you need to vote. This is how you should vote. This is how he just gave me advice. very good faith advice, okay? And he didn't, as I talked to him a number of times when I would come home from the St. Paul, I couldn't pick up which way he was even leaning. He just kept it pretty neutral, but gave me good advice. So I was having a heck of a time making up my mind. I knew what my head wanted to do because I had been there in 1960, I knew what my heart wanted to do because I'd been there in 1968. Been there. 1968. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let somebody else be discriminated against for anything. And that's what my heart kept telling me. And my head kept telling me, John, you've had a great opportunity down here. And you're climbing the ladder. And you have come from a tough district. And you're in the leadership right now. You know how you need to vote in order to get reelected. That's what my brain kept telling me, and other people kept telling me. And so I struggled with it. And I'll never forget, I never did come out with how I was going to vote, except the morning of the caucus. Representative Radinovich always sat with me at our what we call our caucus meetings. It's our DFL caucus meetings prior to a House session. So we're in our caucus the morning of the marriage equality vote. Joe's sitting next to me, and I leaned over to him and said, Joe, I want to see you after caucus. He said, okay, John. So we get done with the caucus, and the staff always sat behind the legislators. Our DFL staff sat behind the legislators. So we get done with the caucus, and the Capitol that day was packed. I've never seen it that packed. And it was loud, and it was mostly joyful, and it was just an unbelievable environment and experience. So we get done with caucus, all the other legislators leave, every one of them, and Joe and I are just sitting there. Staff couldn't leave until all the legislators were out of the room. That was their duty. So Joe and I are sitting there alone, and the other ones are behind us, the staff. And Joe looked at me and says, "What do you want? What do you want to? What's going on?" I said, "Joe, I made my mind up." He said, "You have?" I said, "Yeah. I'm voting for marriage equality." And he starts crying. And I start crying. And we hug each other. And the staff is saying to us, "Are you guys all right? Are you guys all right? What's on?" And I said, "Shut up. Just leave us alone. Just leave us alone." So we hugged and hugged. And Joe said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I've never been more sure in a vote in my life, Joe. Never." And he and I walk arm in arm. So what had happened in the Capitol, out of the caucus rooms, both the Republican and the Democratic caucus, they had made a path for the legislators to go to the House. So Joe and I came out as the last legislators on this path that were made. We were arm in arm. We went into the House, into the chambers, and sat down and proceeded to, listen to the debate, listen to all of it, or whatever. And I never told anybody else, just Joe. And Joe sat right behind me in the chambers. And it came the time to push the button, the red or the green button. And so they lit up the board for us to push our button. And I looked at Joe and winked. And he pushed green, I pushed green. And then, then the votes tallied. Then they were tallying the votes, okay? And leadership knew the number that we needed to have in order to pass the votes. And there were Republicans that also voted for marriage equality. So some of them they were expecting, some of them they were not expecting. So we had plenty of votes to pass marriage equality. The leadership came down from their desks in the front to my desk and said, "John, you got to change your vote." And I looked at Joe, and he smiled. And I turned around and said, "No, I'm not changing my vote. The guy sitting next to me on the chair was a guy named Michael Paymar, who was a representative, DFL representative from St. Paul. He leaned over and he said, I've been here a lot of years. This is one of the most courageous votes I've seen. And maybe you need to think about what leadership is saying. And I said, Michael, no. I know what I'm doing. And I told the leadership, no, my vote is up there and it's not changing. And the rest is history, Dan. And I am so proud and lucky and honored to have made that vote and to do what is right, in my opinion. Because the next year, in 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court said marriage equality is the law of the land. Love is the law of the land. And I've never, ever regretted that vote. And I'm proud to have made that vote. But was it emotional? You're damn right it was. Was it tough? For me, it was tough. But really, it wasn't that tough because I knew all along what I wanted to do. That guy sitting behind me gave me the courage to do what I wanted to do and needed to do. And I'm still thankful to him for that. He and I have talked about that a lot of times since. And I love him for that, and I respect and admire him for that. Now, move forward a little bit. And yeah, I lost the next election. Every rural Democrat legislator that year lost. It doesn't matter how many years you were in or anything like that. If you voted, and actually, there was another state rep by the name of Patty Fritz, Representative Patty Fritz from Faribault. And I loved her. She was just remarkable. She too was a Catholic. She too was pro-life. She voted against marriage equality. She lost. It didn't matter how you voted, evidently, or in some areas it didn't matter because those of us that voted for it in rural, some of them that were rural and voted against it, they also lost because they were maybe Democrats. I don't even know why, but because Patty Fritz was remarkable, a legislator as well. So, I still, like I said, I still am just thankful to have had that opportunity to make that vote. Recently, I had somebody talk to me about that and say something to me about, you went against your constituency. And here's one thing I want people to know. Representative Ward kept tabs on his staff kept tabs on every call, text, email that he got regarding votes, regarding different bills and different votes. I had tally sheets made up, and I wanted to know how my constituency was weighing in, and my staff was trained. I got them to understand, I want you to make sure that you get their address so I know if they're in my district or not, and yes or no. I want to know what that person says. My staff did a remarkable job with that all my 8 years. On that vote, Dan, on that, and Marcia, that vote, my tallies came up as more people supporting marriage equality that I got contacted than opposed to marriage equality. Yet this person locally just questioned me on why I voted that way because my constituency told me they didn't want me to. I says, you know what? You're wrong. And you don't know the facts. And here are the facts, so-and-so. And, but it kind of played out in the voting booth. So be it. I'm still honored and proud. I've had a wonderful life. I've not, not just through the state, but through local city government, councilor, mayor, now on the school board, and I've got a great family and great grandkids, and life's been good. And I just am very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to try to help people, represent people, and listen to people, and speak for people, and engage in the public. And that's been one of my passions. So I'm good.